How is the Middle East covered? The advent of satellite television followed by internet connectivity via mobile devices has had a revolutionizing effect on Arab media. Rise of social media is seen today in the backdrop of Arab Spring. But can we consider social media as a part of the newsroom today? What really transpires inside the newsroom? How today journalists are trying to negotiate with this impending change? This study attempts to find it out. For the Arab world, news is the most popular form of content. Not surprisingly enough, the consumption is moving online, with 40% of the newsreaders accessing news via the internet in 2009. In the UAE, the numbers are tilting towards reading news online as well. My study is grounded in the UAE. Before that, let's quickly understand a few facts on the UAE. The diverse composition of the UAE population strongly influences preferences in consumption pattern. Among leading English dailies are Gulf News, Khalij Times, The National, and 7 Days. If I had to understand how this phenomenon is actually taking root in the English dailies mentioned, meeting reporters would form a key role in my methodology. For brevity and convenience, I choose 2 national dailies, one of them whose online presence and social media interactiveness is far ahead from the other. But among the online key competitors, Gulf News and Khalij Times have been going neck to neck, both being in circulation for more than 30 years, with Khalij Times credited to be the first English newspaper launched in the UAE in 1978. It was but obvious my most natural choice. The National, on the other hand, is fairly new in the game, with being launched in 2008. Now, to better understand the operations, news structure, news values, questions of immediacy due to online news, role of a reporter, online guidelines set out by news organizations, and level of interactivity, I administered a questionnaire. The questionnaire was sent to reporters from across English news dailies, both print and online, by email, Facebook messages, and Twitter shortened links. It was my concerted effort to reach out to a variety of reporters, editors, feature writers, multimedia journalists, newsreaders in radio stations, IT support staff in news organizations. This helped me to compare my perception of the newsroom in the UAE and avoid any of my prejudices to creep in the in-depth interviews. Using rated scale opinions, I chiseled my in-depth interview questions and found the focus of my questions. In return, I hope that the interviews will reiterate what the cross-section of reporters, editors briefly highlighted the issues that had a far-reaching trend inside the newsroom from the questionnaire study itself. I was meeting over 10 reporters from 2 news organizations. Now, due to the privacy policy of few news organizations, a sizable number of reporters wanted to keep their identities hidden. However, the dynamics of the newsroom, more openly increasing the transparency of the operations and expanding my questioning diameter. So this actually helped. My initial interest in news values found consistent validation across the 2 media organizations. Proximity, high-profile government initiatives of what is lovingly called in the UAE as a law of the land news, and community news found a lot of resonance. The day I actually visited the newsroom of Khalij Times, the cover story that we're working on was of a suicide case of a woman in Sharjah, an emirate in UAE, and $1 million Dubai government plan for its new canal network. The mood of the newsroom was upbeat due to the festive season around the corner, and at the same time, most of the staff were excited due to a visit by a Bollywood celebrity who were in town to promote the latest Bollywood flick. Now, the digital nature of the news printing technologies, which took my instant attention during my stay in the newsroom, actually got me to the next line of discussion with the reporters. Khalij Times adopts a print-first policy, echoing a similar line by the National. Convergence of print and online is not superficial, but an integral part of the workflow. But herein lies a key point. In Khalij Times, online is still a subset of the print procedure. International, online comes in only after the print copy is ready to go for a print after the hierarchy of edits and checks. A smaller size personnel are allocated for managing online content. Now, from this random selection of reporters, a key feature was fast emerging. Reporters I interviewed came from different age groups with varied years of experience. Now, editors with over 20 years of experience were very cynical about using social media. Not only that, they also about collaborative reporting and citizen journalism. Reporters who were initiated to journalism through the digital media were far more open for experimenting with social media. Most actually boasting of their high followers on Twitter while citing interactivity with their readers online and social media as a positive aspect of their work culture. Now, this is something which I found as a unified voice across all media organizations. Twitter as a news source for breaking news as well as became an integral part of the daily news find. Almost all journalists in the UAE keeps a constant track of the buzz on Twitter. Most of them, they pick up the lead from Twitter and they follow up with their stories. I would like to cite a very interesting example I came across. The story goes like this. On a random day, a female Emirati woman tweets, New Year desert party, why not allowed in the UAE? A journalist from Khaleej Times picks this up and contacts the tourism department of Dubai if any such laws exist where you're not allowed to do party on a New Year in the desert. A hot discussion soon developed on Twitter and Facebook, and this is what Muhammad Khalifa Al Ahli, the director of inspection and tourism permits at Dubai DTCM said. The desert is not an outlet for a discotheque. He said, tourists that wanted to visit a nightclub had plenty of things to do across Dubai. Now, this story had picked up a lot of discussions online and became one of the major stories during last year's New Year party. A story solely due to a random tweet. Now journalists, old or new, do understand these consequences, and most of them are grappling with the change. Some with optimism, others not quite so. A clear understanding on the scope and acceptance of smart devices in the journalistic community in the UAE is still a big question mark. A new generation who is already married to smart devices believes believes it to be a new extension to one of the new collection of devices. Most of them believes journalists should train themselves on using an iPhone to quickly take photographs and upload them. Whereas the experienced lot still believes it should not be forced on the journalist. Resistance on the part of the organization to implement such a parameter is tantamount to force feeding the journalist. But what can be expected of a wannabe journalist knocking at the door? The scope of my study. This study is exploratory in nature and aims to probe into 3 dimensions of news production. First, what prompts a newsmaker to consider certain news as interesting, important, and imperative? Second, what defines their modalities of news collection, news projection, and news interaction? Third, the third dimension is that of an intrusion of online consumption and the increasing use of social media by both producers, the news producers, and the news consumers. Initial reading showed that there were very few, almost none, studies done in the direction of the changing dynamics within the newsroom. That being the crux of the study, the other findings through literature reviews has contributed to a large extent to initiate this particular study, design the questionnaire, and develop the constructs and filter the contents. Further to this, the responses have helped bifurcate into areas of agreement and disagreement. This study proposes to augment the otherwise limited knowledge of what happens within a newsroom through a thorough investigation using both a questionnaire survey and an in-depth executive interview. Now, coming to limitations. The area of the study limits my investigation to a large extent. Primarily, the most important is the UAE has a very limited range of news producers. That limits the information about the fundamental practices within the newsroom. Second, in the instances of having identified the individuals for the research, their non-availability in the newsroom owing to their hectic schedule was a restraint. Thirdly, subject to the privacy policies that govern the agencies, probing was challenging. Non-responsiveness was inherent throughout the study. And fourthly, the impressions generated through the study are subject to the opinions as expressed by the respondents and may not be conclusive of the industry as a whole. It is, however, reflective of their experiences, and care has been taken to get the respondents to avoid personal biases at all times. Now that concludes my study. I believe my paper will throw more insight into the subject under study and will expand the scope for any further research. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and I would also like to thank Dr. Seena Biju for her invaluable input as my co-author. And not to forget, I'd like to also thank my mentor and guide, Dr. Padmarani, for her patience and all the help she has offered. This is Sabir Haq signing out.